Hello and welcome to the matchup presented by Unibet alongside Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson, who you can hear on Steelers Nation Radio's The Drive. I'm Rob King. Thanks for being with us. Steelers coming off a very important victory at the Cincinnati Bengals. They won 16-10. According to PFF, going into that game, if the Steelers had lost, their playoff chances were just 35%. If they won, 76%. So obviously a big victory as the team continues running into December. Yes, the passing game looked lively. We'll get to a little bit more of that coming up, but the running game has been terrific, Dale.
The running game has been great, and it's 4 straight games over at least 150 yards, and that's the kind of thing that travels, especially as you get into these December games. You better be able to run the football a little bit. Passing the ball in December and January in the Northeast, not exactly a good way to try to move the football.
No, and they've been the best running team in the NFL, that 174 yards over the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, the run defense has been great. They kind of got back to basics. And then we saw some new wrinkles this past week, too. More middle of the field throwing, more play action, that type of thing. But the foundation is the running game with very good line now in that department. Darnell Washington doing great work in the run game and 2 really good running backs.
So let's get to our key matchups as the Steelers host the 2-10 Arizona Cardinals on Sunday at Acrisure Stadium. I'll go first because my key is...
What is yours, Rob?
Run the ball. It's been an effective tool, obviously, for them. Look, I think you want to keep drives going against this Arizona Cardinals team. They're not a very good third down defense. They're not very good in a lot of categories. But, keep drives alive. They were able to run the ball, control the clock, wear down the Bengals. It makes the defense better when you do this. I know we're talking about offense, but I think this combination of Harrison and Warren with a little bit now of Kenny Pickett picking his moments the last couple weeks to run, I think is a huge key in this game.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely 100% right about that, Rob. The key to this, Cam Hayward was asked earlier today, what makes the defense so effective? He goes, well, we're only playing 41 snaps. That keeps us pretty effective. And the run game is a big part of that. And the balance that they're showing offensively, the last few weeks. And when I talk about balance, just being able to run or throw and do what you want to do, that should be something that they can do against this Arizona Cardinals team as well.
Same amount of runs and passes in this game last week, so that was great to see, obviously, but it starts with this running the football, and the Steelers have obviously been extremely effective, and it has so many. We talk about third down. Arizona's 30th in the league. They've been even worse the last 3 weeks. The Steelers were 47% against the Bengals. Yes, some of that was throwing, but some of that was getting into third and managed.
Sure, the manageable is the key. Third and short's a heck of a lot different in this league when the defensive masterminds can dial up all their exotic blitzes and things of that nature. And the physicality, kind of that Dale alluded to, really pays off through the course of the game. Less defense is more defense in today's NFL, and you got to help your defense no matter how talented they are.
All right, let's get to Matt's key. And Matt, the passing game, right from the very first throw, they attacked the middle of the field. They weren't afraid to go down the field. Then you're looking for maybe a little bit more of that if needed against Arizona.
There's a big if needed. Not to disrespect the opponent, but it's pretty obvious that the Cardinals, talent-wise on defense, are below the line. They really are. And if you look at any category, they're at the bottom of the league defensively. So I would imagine the Steelers can hand it to Harrison Warren time and time again and be successful. But if needed, their matchups, particularly outside the numbers down the field, are superb. The Cardinals really struggle in that area of coverage, and we know that's where Pickens and Johnson do their best work.
They're young there, and when they're not young, they're not all that effective at the cornerback spot. This brings up an interesting point, Dale, as we look at the Steelers moving forward. We all want to see more out of the passing game, as you alluded to, that better balance. Freiermuth had a career game. That's the best game he's ever had, 120 receiving yards. But I do suspect that might be game by game. Yes, hopefully they'll push the ball down the field, but this might be the week in which we see Deontay Johnson and Pickens having big games. Higbee had 2 touchdowns, the tight end for the Rams last week, but they had 4 through the air. This is a team maybe they can exploit on the outside using those wide receivers.
Yeah, and that's something that the Steelers have talked about for several years now. We want to be a team that's capable of doing whatever you need to do that particular week to win the game. So if it's throwing the ball to the tight end, we've got a good enough tight end that we could do that with. If it's throwing the ball outside the numbers, we got good enough wide receivers that you can do that with. If it's the run game, you have good enough running backs and an offensive line to do that. So they do have some of that diversity in their game, and that was something that was kind of missing, with Pat Freiermuth missing the previous few games there. So Maybe things are just starting to trend in the right direction for the Steelers at just the right time.
And just what Freiermuth did last week makes them so much more difficult to prepare for during the week. Wow, there's another club in their bag that the Steelers offense can use.
And to underscore, there are some defenses like Cleveland, San Francisco, harder to attack in the middle of the field. And so if you have some diversity, you can sort of dictate where you're going to attack.
100%. Or some teams great at outside corner and you have to go to the middle of the field, or they don't like to play with heavy boxes, et cetera. I mean, you're going to run into styles make fights. You're going to run into different style opponents all throughout the year, and you have to be able to adapt.
Well, stylistically, the Steelers looked much, much better this last week. But even though they got over 400 yards of offense for the first time in 58 weeks, 58 games, they still only had 16 points, in part because they weren't that efficient in the red zone, something that is your key to this game.
Yeah, they were 1 for 4 in the red zone, Rob, and they got to be better in that area. How about this little number for you? Opponents against the Arizona Cardinals this season are 32 of 54 scoring touchdowns on red zone trips.
Wow.
I don't know what 32 red zone touchdowns or 54 red zone trips that they've allowed. The Steelers are 10 of 23 scoring in the red zone this year. So
to put it into context,
the Cardinals have given up more red zone touchdowns than the Steelers have red zone trips this season.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Mind-boggling. Yeah, it really is.
And obviously this is going to be a key for the Steelers. Again, 16 points, great. It was enough for a win. You're going to want to see more as this team hopefully builds towards a crescendo in the postseason. But another thing I think that's key to this game, and that's a great stat. Matt Williamson always has great stats too. You always think in terms of the underdog. Don't let them hang around. Let them know this isn't going to be their day early. But there's statistical evidence that suggests that the Steelers, if they can score first and if the Cardinals give up the first score, that it's going to be a good outcome.
Yeah, so every game that the Steelers have scored first, they've won this year. Every game that the opponent has scored first against the Cardinals, they've lost this year, although they've lost a lot of different ways as well.
Yeah.
But you got to think, that's a very long road trip. It's not the weather they're accustomed to. It's a 1 o'clock start, 10 o'clock start for them. Frankly, their season's going nowhere. If you can land the first couple blows, I think it goes a long way in this game.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, you want to make them start thinking about, now that we're turning the calendar over into December, what are my off-season trips going to be? I'm going to start planning those golf trips. And they're in Phoenix. They probably have a few good golf courses down there.
They do. The first of 5 games in the month of December for the Steelers. It is time for this week's Yin's Chat. This is your opportunity to answer Steelers trivia questions, for an opportunity to win prizes like signed helmets, jerseys, footballs, even a trip to the 2024 draft. If you answer the day's questions correctly, you can get double the points. So log into the Steelers mobile app now and play for a chance to win this week's prize. That's a football signed by tight end Pat Freiermuth. The over-under receiving yards, 50.5. And based on what he did last week, I'm tempted to go over, but based on our conversation, I think I'm going to go under, not because I don't think Freiermuth can have a big game, maybe even get into the end zone, but because I do think the Steelers are going to try to exploit the Cardinals on the outside more this week.
Yeah, I'm with you. If you look at the one strength of the defense that the Cardinals do have, it's their 2 safeties. Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson are 2 good players, and so but they can be had on the outside, and so why force it to Freiermuth if you don't have to? I would go under that total too.
Yeah, this defense doesn't throw a lot at you. They play a lot of zone, a lot of 2 high, so there is room, for a tight end to sit down in the zones and whatnot. I just think you're going to have a lot of success on the ground. You might not even get to the tight end, portion of things.
All right. We love Pat Freiermuth, but we're going under just because of the matchup this week, which is, of course, the name of our show. The matchup presented by Unibet. And when we return, we're going to take a look at the Steelers' defense against the Cardinals' offense. That's up next on the matchup presented by Unibet.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
Welcome back to the matchup presented by Unibet, getting you ready for the 2-10 Arizona Cardinals visiting your 7-4 Pittsburgh Steelers alongside Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson. I'm Rob King. And we talked about the Steelers being able to run the football. They've been able to stop the run here more effectively recently. They've only given up 15 points a game on average over the last 7. This is a defense trending in the right direction, beginning with stopping the run because their back end statistically has been very good.
Yeah, and it's, the run defense has really gotten its feet under it a little bit since the return of Cam Hayward. Obviously, that helps. The 25 rushing yards they gave up last week to Cincinnati, the fewest allowed by any team in the league in a game this year. So they're starting to trend in the right direction, not only running the football, but stopping the run.
That actually kind of leads to my key, to be honest with you, is dominating the middle of this offensive line. And Dale mentioned it, Cam Hayward coming back. Since then, the run defense numbers have been off the charts. But the inside of this line for the Cardinals is not nearly as strong as the tackles, and the tackles are okay, not great, And I think Hayward deserves a ton of credit, but Benton's played extremely well. Ogunjobi hasn't had to play as many snaps. Adams might return, and even Watts has played very, very well. So the interior group of this D line has been great. You want to keep, Kyler in the pocket, and you don't want to let, Connor have any inside run success.
Well, I think we can extend that to Landon Roberts and James Conner. When you talk about the middle of the field, yes, hopefully an advantage for those big guys up front, but Landon Roberts has been excellent. James Conner, we know how effective and what a good ball player he can be, but again, that's a matchup within the matchups to also look at it in the interior.
It really is, and in Landon Roberts, you're looking at a guy who is a downhill linebacker who's smart, physical. I don't know that the Steelers have had that kind of physicality at the inside linebacker position in quite some time. And James Conner's his counterpart on the other side of the line of scrimmage. He's a physical style runner. He's going to try to go through you as opposed to trying to run around you. And so that's going to be a marquee matchup and one to watch there. Who wins that matchup? Because I would expect them to meet in the hole a couple of times at least in this game. And that should be fun to watch.
All right, let's move from the middle of the field to the edges. And Dale, your key is the rookie right tackle, Paris Johnson, against T.J. Watt.
Yeah, and T.J. Watt, he's leading the league in sacks right now. He's at 13.5. Puts him on pace for 21 for the season. So just behind his pace from a couple of years ago when he tied the NFL record. He's going up against Paris Johnson, who's a really highly touted rookie offensive tackle, but he's a rookie offensive tackle. We'll see how much they help him. Arizona does play a lot of 13 personnel, so they'll have 3 tight ends on the field, more than most teams. I want to see how much they try to help Paris Johnson, or do they trust their young, highly touted offensive tackle to hold up against T.J. Watt on his own?
Yeah, that's going to be a fun matchup for sure. And, my key matchup is just looking at, Kyler Murray at the quarterback position. This is his 4th game back. By the way, he was sacked 4 times last week. He's been sacked 9 times in his 3 games back. He had 6 quarterback hurries last week, so they haven't been holding up that well in front of him. But this is still a guy who a couple years ago was an ascending quarterback, a quarterback on the rise. We know he had the injury that cost him a lot of last year at the beginning of this season as well. But look, he ran for over 800 yards back in 2020 and 11 touchdowns. The following year, he had a 100 quarterback rating. This is a talented guy who can beat you in multiple ways, and he scares you because he can be an X factor in a game like this, running the ball, throwing the ball, doing things like this, creating plays. That ability that he still has does frighten me a little bit going into this game.
It should. I mean, he's the wild card. There's no question. He's first overall pick, immensely talented. Yes, he's smaller, but he's hard to get on the ground. He doesn't look like he has any ill effects from coming back from the injury. And overall, this team has some playmakers on offense. I mean, some young guys, but led by Murray.
Yeah, I mean, they're a much more dangerous. The offensive numbers that they have right now aren't great, but they're a much different offense with Kyler Murray out there as opposed to Clayton Tune or Josh Dobbs. So you kind of have to throw the overall numbers out the window where they're ranked, 32nd or whatever in a lot of those statistics. This is a completely different offense with Kyler Murray.
I'm glad we got to the end of that scramble against the Raiders. That was
a long one. Yeah,
pretty unbelievable.
Pretty long highlight. Yeah, they're throwing the ball a lot more with Kyler too.
Yeah,
right. Which makes sense.
And they have some speed on the outside.
Yeah, and I really like their young tight end as well. So they have some dangerous pass catchers.
All right, so the 2-10 Arizona Cardinals visiting the 7-4 Pittsburgh Steelers. Game time on Sunday, scheduled for 1 p.m. at Acrisure Stadium. For Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson, I'm Rob King. Thanks for watching this edition of The Matchup, presented by Unibet.